What's going on, people? Yes, I'm back. And I know y'all just saw this video, right? No. Remember last time I mentioned that I was going to be going in detail in each one of the packages. And this gives me an opportunity to not also break down to y'all what's in these products and what these products do, but also how your body works. So it kind of, killing two birds with one stone. So once again, this is the Solstice Sale. As I explained, sol means sun, stis means stillness. We're about to experience the winter solstice. When? It's going to be Thursday. I believe 10:28 in the morning, about 10:30 in the morning on Thursday. This is the point in which the sun, ends up sitting still for 3 days, and then, it resurrects. This is what the Christmas and the Jesus story is supposed to be about, the whole resurrection of the sun occurring over these 3 days between the solstice and what people deem as Christmas or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa. All this deals with type of a resurrection, because from that point, the solstice is the shortest daylight and the longest night. It will now start increasing the day. So from this point, the sun starts to empower until it gets to the summer solstice in June, in which it's the longest day and it's the shortest night. Alright, so we talked about the immune cleanse and nerve cleanse yesterday. I went in real detail in the kidney and a little bit in the nerves. So we talked about Renalite yesterday. I broke the kidney down and the whole stone thing down with that. And we've talked about juglidine, we talked about C3, so I'm going to get into Immunoblast, and how I'm going to do that is talk about the immune system. Alright, now, and real quick, 20% off. Go to luvgreenlife@gmail.com, send your inquiry so you can find out, what the 20% off is, and, find out all the details. All right, so what y'all looking at? No, it's not a skeleton. No, it's not Green Electric Man. No, this is the lymphatic system you're looking at right here, okay? And the lymphatic system consists of lymph vessels and consists of lymph fluid, consists of the spleen, as well as the thymus, which gets real small as we get older. Children have huge thymus. That's why children really don't get sick unless you're giving them that trash. But that same trash you give kids, when you give it to adults just be falling apart because their thymus is so small. Okay, so we won't be getting into the thymus gland or the spleen today, but we will be getting into the immune system, as well as the lymph nodes and the lymphatic system, so you get an understanding of that. And I can always follow up with the thymus and the spleen, to go more in detail. There's a reason why there's arrows right here, because when I get into this whole lymph thing, these two positions are very important, because these are lymph vessels, but we also have blood vessels, okay, that break down into arteries and veins and connected by way of capillaries, right? So when the fluids are getting exchanged, there's two areas where the lymph is able to dump its contents back into the blood again, and it's the thoracic duct, and it is the left subclavian duct, which is like, right here, okay, because this is the clavicle. So when they say subclavian, they're talking about underneath the clavicle. So we're talking about in this neck area right here, and then here on the side, thoracic, dealing with, that section of the vertebrae where the gastrointestinal tract is. Alright, so the lymph, as we blow in, you see it's this network of vessels with these little knobs or olives or grapes on them things. Like, what is that? And I know y'all heard of lymphatic system and lymph before, and I know people hear about the immune system all the time, but people don't really have a great understanding of it. So I'm going to make sure that we do that, okay? All right, so as we blow in, zoom in, blow up rather, into one of these little olive-shaped things right here, which are the lymph nodes, okay? We see this structure, okay? And this structure represents a point in which lymph actually flows in, and then after the processing that occurs in this area ends up flowing out. And as you see, it's also innervated with red and blue vessels, which represent obviously the arteries and the veins, or arterioles and venules, which are smaller versions, smaller diameters of the arteries and the veins. Okay, so let's get an example. Let me give you an example of what's going on here, and then we'll go back to the node. And I put a title here. What does it say? Tithing with fluid 10%? What am I talking about? Well, people who go to church or go to any religious institution, tithing is recommended, it's received, okay? And usually it's 10%. Shoot, even when you're working, you know, there's a certain amount that you're supposed to give away. So tithing ain't just about a church and giving, you know, money to the deacon, you know, and the pastor and everything like that, or the building fund. But it's a principle. It's a spiritual principle that when you create the aspect of attracting abundance and funds to you, you're supposed to take 10% of that and give it back in some form or another. I mean, you can give it to somebody homeless on the street. You could give it to some type of organization. You know, you might buy somebody a gift, you know what I'm saying? But whatever it is, you put it back, you know what I'm saying, in the universe, and you retain 90. And this principle occurs in our body. And how does it occur in our body? All right, so as I spoke, arteries, veins, okay? Arteries are what? Oxygenated blood. Veins are deoxygenated blood. Arteries have sphincters that are wrapped around it. So in addition to the pumping of the heart, because this is the blood that's leaving the heart, right? Because it got oxygenated when it was in there by way of going through the pulmonary system, the lungs, it gives it the oxygen. That's why it's red. So these have sphincters. So after the heart pumps the blood, you have sphincters on this tube that constantly squeeze and keep the pulsation of this blood flowing through your system, okay? And then the veins here don't have sphincters. They have valves, okay? If we go back to this picture, these lymph nodes have valves too. If you notice, that's these little folds right here where things can only go in one direction. If anything tries to backflow, these flaps close and prevent it. The other thing you got to keep in mind is because there's no sphincter, that means that you have to use another form of energy in order to get the fluid to move. And how do you do that? Well, usually veins as well as lymph is right next to skeletal muscle, so that as we walk, as we run, as we jump, as we move, as we dance, you know what I'm saying? As we do all of these things, what happens? We're moving and we're causing our fluids to move as well. Those that don't move and sit down all day or drive trucks all day or, you know, live in an existence where there's not a lot of movement, well, we know what stagnant water smell like, okay? So that's what occurs in the body. All right, so arteries, veins, okay? Arterioles, okay? And then capillaries, where blood cells have to go in single file. All right, and what these are right here represents interstitial tissue, okay? When you say tissue, remember tissue is just a fancy way of saying a bunch of cells, okay? Because just like you got atom makes up a molecule, okay? A molecule makes up a compound, all right? These compounds can make up protein, and then proteins, you know, and other aspects and other macromolecules can make up a cell. Now, once you have a cell, you put these cells together, you have a tissue. Once you put the tissues together, you have an organ. Once you put the organs together, you have a system. And once you put the systems together, you got your corporeal self, your body, okay? So this is interstitial tissue. Interstitial means in between, okay? Interstitial tissue. And these are the cells of the interstitial tissue. And what ends up happening is, remember, blood is about 95% water. It's over 90% water, okay? With solutes and red blood cells flowing through it, okay? This plasma, all right, ends up leaking out of the capillary system, all right? And as it leaks out of the capillary system, what is it doing? Well, these cells right here are constantly working, doing 100,000 chemical reactions per second. Doing what? Creating waste as a byproduct. Carbon dioxide, pathogens, all types of stuff. Broken down things, they're being excreted out of the cells the same way you sit on a toilet and excrete waste out of yourself. Well, it can't just sit there. You see what I'm saying? So this plasma, what it does is it sweeps all that stuff back up. Now, once that ends up taking place, right? 90% of that plasma ends up now entering into the veins, okay, along with what? Those solutes and carbon dioxide and all the other properties, you know, that was excreted out of cells. So now it enters the vein part of the capillary. You see, so it comes out of this red part of the capillary, all right, picks up all of the trash, and then it enters into the vein, and then it keeps going, okay? Now, remember I said 90% of the plasma goes back in. So there we go, tithing with the fluid, 10%. What is that 10% about? Where does that 10% go? Well, that 10% that hangs around, if it stays around and it doesn't go anywhere, that's how you get edema, which we call swelling, okay? You increase the pressure, okay, because everything is pressurized here. Millimeters mercury represents pressure, okay? So what we have here is swelling that can occur. So lots of people that experience swelling and the retaining of fluids is because this 10% is staying in the interstitial fluid. How do you get the interstitial fluid out? Well, you get it out by way of the lymph, okay? So that 10% enters the lymph, and once it enters the lymph, then it starts going through the lymphatic system. Now, the lymphatic system also carries certain pathogens, certain waste products and things like that, and carries it off to where? To the lymph node. And the reason why it takes it to the lymph node is because the lymph node is where you have all of these immune cells stationed that are going to do what? That are going to consume and eat up all this trash. Things are going to get, you know, reduced or oxidized. Chemical reactions are going to occur to try and convert, okay, all of this toxic material into materials that can flow through the body until you are able to actually get it out of your system totally. Okay, so if you notice, these are just like veins with the valve. This is all the fluid that's coming in the lymph node, and then, you know, then you have the vessels in which the fluid is going out. All right. Now, when you're dealing with the immune system, okay, you got to break it up into two parts. And remember, the immune system is not localized. It's not one spot. It's not like I could say, this is my immune system. Like, no, it's everywhere. You see what I'm saying? And my mother, Mama Pill, she got a great perspective where she feels that the digestive system actually represents the immune system, which makes a whole lot of sense. And you'll see why when I explain, you know, these two parts of the immune system. Now, the first part of the immune system is called the innate immune system. Okay, innate immune system. Now, what does innate mean? Innate means within. You know what I mean? It means that it's intrinsic. So this is the immediate response. Okay, immediate response, meaning that it's something that happens immediately, right away. Okay, and what does that represent? Simply just a physical barrier. What is the physical barrier? Your skin. Okay, your skin is the physical barrier. Immune system, you know, the oils, the pores, the hair, the pressure, all the different molecules and chemicals and enzymes in it, all of these work together in order to protect. Okay, so the skin keeps all the elements from the outside. I mean, come on, when you think about outside, we got to be lucky that the visible spectrum, you know, is all we see. If we was able to see the whole electromagnetic spectrum, can you imagine all the microbes, bacteria, people farting, people burping, you know, people who are real sick, got all type of fumes coming out their body? It would look real crazy around here, you know? So our skin is a buffer zone between this volatile environment that we live in and the pounds of pressure from the atmosphere that we deal with, you know, and what all goes on inside to keep it a controlled, closed system. All right? The mucous membrane. Okay, mucous membrane, which composes what? Like I was speaking of with my mother, digestive system. This is the digestive system. We're talking alimentary canal from the mouth to the anus, going down the esophagus, stomach, small intestines, large intestines, and also I'm going to throw in the liver, the pancreas, the gallbladder, because they all have exocrine functions where they secrete properties that go what? Down the common ducts. Okay, into the small intestines, so they have their own mucous membrane as well. Okay, and then we can't forget the respiratory system, the trachea, the bronchial tubes, the bronchioles, the alveoli, okay, the whole lungs and the fluid that's around the lungs. Remember, this whole tract right here is covered with a mucus lining, okay, with cilia that beat it back and forth like sea anemone, and that's how you keep stuff constantly coming up your throat. That's how you and you spit something out, is because of the cilia that's beating back and forth and the mucous membrane that's there. But see, when that thing dries up, it gets real thick, and now you like trying to hawk something up, or you got a dry heave because there's no longer any gelatinous or mucous membrane that allows the beating of this cilia to keep that vibe going. It's all dried up, and it's almost like people that grease their hair down. It's greased down. And you feel the wind going over this flat surface now, because usually the surface has this dance going on. Okay, so like I said, trachea, bronchial tubes, bronchioles, lungs. Okay, all right, mucous membrane inside of the stomach. Okay, fluids also. Okay, such as hydrochloric acid. Okay, that like most of us think digestion occurs in the stomach. It don't. Digestion occurs in the small intestines. This hydrochloric acid does initiate certain things to make it easier on the small intestines once that starts in an alkaline solution, because this is acidic. But this kills so many microbes and destroys things. Because remember, as we eating, air's coming in. There's stuff on the food you don't know. People's hands, all types of stuff. You see what I'm saying? So that kills it, but sometimes you have some bacteria that's kind of strong, and you still end up getting infected. Okay, so then we got phagocytes and neutrophils. I'm missing an R right there, so forgive me right here. And these are particular cells that perform phagocytosis. Okay, phagocytosis. What is phagocytosis? Phagocytosis is a process in which a cell engulfs something, like our retinal pigmented epithelium that's behind our eyes. Oh yeah, that thing like Pac-Man, and it eats up the discs that contain the DHA and creates direct current and charge that powers our system. And these particular mechanisms, they do the same thing. They eat what? They eat the bacteria, the pathogens, and things like that. Okay. Fever. Okay, fever is another one. Now the neutrophils and the phagocytes is actually going to go into the second part. This slide is out of order, but I still wanted to explain it to you. All right, but the fever though, okay, based on the hypothalamus, which is right here. Okay, you got the pituitary right here. Okay, and then right on top of the pituitary is hypothalamus. Hypo means below. Below what? Below the thalamus. Okay, and what does the hypothalamus consist of? The hypothalamus consists of a collection of different types of nucleated bundles, neuronal bundles that function and have these real powerful properties. Here is the arcuate nucleus, that deals with your leptin receptor. If you really want to study some information and really understand the whole thing about metabolism in your body, I always say mitochondria. After you do that mitochondria, focus on that leptin. You're going to run into it studying the mitochondria anyway. But the hypothalamus, guess what that is? That's your thermostat. That's your thermostat. Thermostat, what is the thermostat? Oh man, it's real cold up in here, man. Let me turn the heat up. Oh man, it's real hot up in here, man. Let me turn. You see what I'm saying? So when you got all this stuff flooded in your body, you got infection, you got things going on, your hypothalamus will raise that temperature on up. Okay, 98.6 degrees is going to pump that bad boy up, probably take you to 99 or something, 100, and you burning up, but you burning up to burn that up. Okay, you're creating an environment that's uncomfortable for these invaders so that they leave. All right. All right, so the second part of the immune system is the acquired immune system. This happened days later. Okay, the other one is an immediate response. This happens days later. Okay, and what you're looking at right here is a cell that actually has antigens, and this is an antibody. And what happens is antigens only can fit to a particular antibody. And when they end up connecting to one another, this is like a signaling cascade, or like a telephone game from one property to another in order to have an end result. And that end result is, to destroy a cell, destroy an invader. You see what I'm saying? So antibodies are produced in response to antigens and the relationship between the two. But remember, this is called acquired. The other one was called innate. So that lets you know right there that we have our own type of system already, but then we have this acquired immune system as well. And this will touch into the talk about white blood cells and the fact that they're always present when there's a problem, meaning that they really don't hold weight in a real healthy body. You don't really hear too many people saying, oh, you got a real low white blood cell count. It's usually when you're infected, inflammation, you got all these issues and problems, white blood cell count is through the roof. And when you have all these autoimmune diseases, when you're talking about lupus and multiple sclerosis, what do you think is eating you up? It's the white blood cells looking at your body like it's food, because you tagged your body as food when you started eating all that garbage. It takes on, certain films around its membrane, and certain energies and frequencies it's producing. The body sees it as a foreigner and it eats it, and you get eat up. And the inflammation and the discoloration and the reddening from all these particular things comes from the consumption of yourself. You're eating yourself from the inside out. All right, so Th1 and Th2. Th stands for T helper. T helper cell 1 and T helper cell 2. Now this ratio is real dynamic, and how it works is when your body has more Th1, when it's Th1 dominant, Th1 deals with macrophage activation, okay, which you're talking about here, and phagocytosis is a phagocyte, but a macrophage would be much larger than that, where it's just eating stuff up. You're talking about things that are popping off inside the cell, a viral infection, thing like that, stuff that goes on inside the cell in order to handle what goes on, like mitochondria producing reactive oxygen species and stuff in order to blow the cell up through apoptosis. See, those things that happen in the cell are based on Th1. Now, Th2 deals with outside of the cell, extracellular, so that's like parasites, worms, and yeast. Huh? Okay, that's what we're dealing with, eating all this stuff during the holiday. We're getting a flooding of that. So that would incorporate this mechanism right here, of phagocytes, where they would be consuming, yeast, or consuming bacteria, or consuming what you call parasites and things like that, and destroying them. But that waste that they produce is pus. Okay, and when that pus builds up, that's how you have those issues as well. So you want to keep the Th1 and Th2 balanced. Okay, you want to keep those two particular things balanced. So we're talking about within the cell, and we're talking about without the cell. We're talking about inside of the cell, intracellular issues that are going on. We're talking about microorganisms that are in your body that you need to take control of. All right. Now, another thing. Now, a reason why we're going through all this immunity is because we're talking about immunoblast. Okay, immunoblast, and immunoblast deals with helping the immune system, but it also helps with bile. How does it help with bile? Bile is what? Cholic acid. All right, deoxycholic acid. You end up making what? Bile salts. Based on cholesterol, and then the liver produces that. It sends it to the gallbladder, okay, from the liver to the gallbladder, okay, and the gallbladder ends up concentrating it. And what does it do? Well, once it goes down the common bile duct and enters your small intestines and the duodenum, remember that's a fluid medium, but you have fat in there from the food that you ate. How do you break this fat down? Well, the bile acid, the salts, right, have a hydrophilic side and a hydrophobic side. Hydrophilic, water loving; hydrophobic, water fearing. Okay, so this side is like oil, and this side is like water. So what happens is this bile acid then, right, connects to the lipid all around it with the oil side facing toward the lipids so they could connect, and then the water side facing outward in the watery medium that they're in. Okay? And there's another picture of it right here. All right? So that would be the polar side, and this would be the fat, oily side inside. Here's another one, okay, with the water hydrophilic head, okay, with the hydrophobic facing inward, with that representing the fat, okay. And here's another one, okay. Remember, the oil has to get broken down into emulsion droplets, the same way you might pour oil, inside of something, and then once it's inside of water, and you shake it up, you get all these little droplets and stuff like that in the water. Well, that's the same thing inside of the intestines, and the bile salt connects all the way around it in order to turn the emulsion droplet into triglycerides. Okay, so let's go back here real quick. This is all called emulsification, which is the process when you have to wash a greasy pan and you end up using Ajax or something, because you can't just use water to clean grease, right? So oil and water doesn't mix. So how does your body break down oils if it's in a watery medium? How do you get grease out of a pan? First you need water, then you need an emulsifier. An emulsifier allows chemicals that don't mix to mix. So the soap you use allows the water to wash the oil away. Okay, so that's what ends up happening. And it takes it over to the walls, the finger-like projections of your duodenum, so that it can enter, into the vessels and flow around the body. All right, and when I said triglycerides, it's a triglyceride model. Here is a glycerol backbone and 1, 2, 3 glycerides. So when I talk about DHA, you know what I'm saying? I'm talking about fatty acids. The triglyceride molecule can have a DHA here, DHA here, EPA here. You see what I'm saying? So this is what is broken down. The glycerol is separated, and then the fatty acids are taken away. Okay, so it's broken down to triglycerides, and triglycerides are broken down into glycerol and fatty acids. Okay. Now, we're going to get into the next package after this presentation, which will be about it's the breastfeeding mothers package, where I'm going to get into talking about the breast milk and C3 and how important it is for the cannabinoids as well as the fatty acids that's inside the milk and how powerful the milk is. Now, most of the time when women get breast cancer is due to the clogging of the lymph nodes by way of aluminum in the deodorant or foods that you eat and clogging all these things up. That's the mass that you feel inside your breast. It's the lymph node that you're feeling that is clogged up and constipated. So, you want to dissolve those hard substances to get them out so that mass can shrink. Okay, so we're going to talk about the breast, next, because the lymph nodes definitely play a major role in the mammary glands, with women. All right, so pregnant and breastfeeding mothers will be the next presentation that we talk about. Okay, Conscious Crispus Concentrate Family 4-pack, saving 30% off of that. You're going to love it. That way you can take a bottle a week and really get it in. And any information that you need, KT the Arch Degree on Instagram and YouTube, Kamani Tate on Facebook. Any inquiries for the Immunoblast and the Immune Cleanse package, please contact us at luvgreenlife@gmail.com. And with that being said, I would like to thank all of you for this wonderful presentation that we both were able to share. Peace.